In that case, it was for Beach Hill West. This time, it's for Pineview South. Most of you will know this as the Howie Rogers tract, one that we've become familiar with over the past several years. Last month, the community facility that we took a look at took the form of a publicly accessible trail. In this case, this is 8.5 acres of land that is set aside, and the public need that it serves, if you'll remember, when we looked at this tract before, this is very close to Somerville Airport, and it falls within their land use restriction zone. This is not regulatory. This is not something that we have adopted into our ordinance, but it's still something that we're aware of. And so as we were going through development proposals and development review, one of the things that we had looked at, if you'll remember, was the potential of getting a grant or looking at working with the state for a VA cemetery on this site. And that would set the land aside. It wouldn't be developed, but it would still be a viable option for the landowner to recoup some of the costs of the land. That didn't end up working out. We weren't selected. So the developer is now moving forward with the development plans here, but they're still trying to be sympathetic towards this land use restriction zone. And so what they're proposing here is this 8.5 acres down on the lower left corner of this map that's hatched, keeping that from being developed for residential homes, trying to restrict any more residential density within that area. So because this is considered a community facility, this does come to PDB for review and approval. All other cluster bonuses, density bonuses, that's all done with at a staff level, but this facility would get approved by you all. I think, aside, in addition to setting it aside, they could evaluate it for other facilities that would serve the neighborhood, tennis courts, pickleball courts. I know that on their adjacent tract, so this is actually two different tracts. You've got the Rogers or Pineview South, which is on one side of 78. On the other side of 78, they have Pineview North. And there is an amenity, a future amenity area designated on that. And I don't know if they would consider doing an amenity on this one. But at any rate, what they're proposing for their community facility is strictly just not developing the property so that they limit residential density within this more intense area of the airport. So I'll open it up for questions right now.
The land for community facilities, what's the language in that?
The language for that, it says, for the purposes of section 10.7, community facilities shall be defined as land set aside that is deemed necessary by Dorchester County to serve a community purpose. Land set aside for bonus density shall be approved by county council. So it's land that serves a public purpose.
So, and I guess that word is, that's why I'm asking that, public purpose versus community purpose. And my challenge with looking at that land is, it's nice that it's there, but there is zero access to that land.
Right, and I don't think it was intended to be publicly accessible.
No,
not accessible to the public, strictly reserved from development.
Okay.
Strictly crash zone.
I just wanted to, I'm being rhetorical somewhat, but was trying to.
And there's a representative from the developer here that might be able to speak more specific to questions like that, but I don't believe it was ever intended to be publicly accessible.
Okay. I think my other question is, and if the developer's here, this is probably for you, wherever you may be, is I know, and I realize that planning has looked at this. In fact, I know Mark looked at this very specifically. I'm kind of curious in the undeveloped space between the homes, green space, for lack of a better term, how is that going to be maintained and identified so that we don't end up with fences that go back to back? Is there somebody here that can answer that?
I'll take advantage of it.
I won't hold you to it, but I'm just, you understand what I'm saying. My challenge ultimately is lived in a neighborhood that had very similar spaces that ultimately, quite honestly, in the end, this is a little bit different because I see access to this, but the way that one was developed, by the time the developer finished with it, there was no clear access to these 12, 15-foot areas behind these homes that were overgrown and everything else, and they always argued in the community association about who was maintaining them.
Sure.
So What's your idea there, at least?
I'm Jason Hutchinson. I'm with Thomas and Hutton. Address is 682 Johnny Dodds Boulevard. And it's been a very long time since I've looked at this plan, so I apologize. But, it does look like they have some open space areas to access those larger open space areas.
Sure.
But those would be turned over to the HOA and their maintenance responsibility.
Just pretty clear. All I would ask is make sure the developer knows that language that, hey, HOA, when we finally turn it over to you, it's yours, maintain it. Because,
Sure.
like I said, I don't have an issue with it other than watching an HOA fight about it in the future.
Right,
So
right, understood.
that's all I had. Anything else?
I don't have any questions.
I'm good.
Is there a motion?
I motion that we approve.
Second?
There is a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We are unanimous. That was almost frightening.
I motion
Another
that
motion.
we adjourn.
There is a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
That's the real gavel right there. That was the preemptive gavel earlier. And folks, at this time, we will call to order the Dorchester County Council Water and Sewer Committee meeting. And we previously had the invocation for the PDB committee, so we will jump into the agenda. We have one item, and it is request for approval of new water and sewer service by HQ Givans LLC for a 107-lot subdivision off Givans Road and approval of cost-sharing agreement. This is for TMS numbers 119000037 and 080. What is the pleasure of the committee?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have two motions. Can I get a second? Second. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I was looking for,
He's not here. He's running late, but I'll do my best.
so, I guess my question on this is, I had a list, sorry, we had a list at one point in time. I know part of this is related to namings that kind of gave us a list of the projects that we had considered that met that capacity as it sat. Was this one of those? Do we know?
So my understanding is kind of twofold. One, it is within the boundary, and that it is one that will be served. The second part of it, the reason why the agreement comes to you is because we're looking to upsize the line, so then we can wield Lake Marion water. And then the third thing I know is there's actually going to be a recommendation also to upgrade a well that'll be coming to you at a future meeting.
So, yeah, water I got, sewer. I guess the sewer capacity, because even though, again, we go back to the same, we put the growth boundaries in, but there's still a lot of question
Right.
about what that capacity, as it flows downhill.
Correct. Indeed it does, but most of the time it's pressurized.
Okay.
But it is also on that list, and we went through this with Larry.
That's fine.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions?
And Mr. Ward, just for clarification also too, as far as the fee structure, it will end up paying for itself, or explain that piece to me as I was reading through.
Yes, sir. So there are actually a couple of things. First and foremost, the developer was required to construct a 10-inch and a 12-inch section. And so what we're asking for council to approve is the differential. There are actually two parts of that. Part of it is a credit, and part of it is a reimbursement. The credit is $235,400 relative to fees paid. The additional amount is $330,000, and that's in direct correlation with the difference in the size of the pipe. And I believe the attachment,
I saw that on the,
yeah, it shows specifically what the differential is in the cost of the pipe.
Yes, sir.
And the anticipated trenching associated with that.
okay, perfect, thank you. That was my confusion on the credit versus the reimbursement. I appreciate it, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
It is 6 in favor, 1 absent. One more motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I motion we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Again, it is 6 in favor, 1 absent. We are adjourned for about 3 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. At this time, we will call to order the Dorchester County Council meeting for April 18th, 2022. And we'll start with invocation and pledge of allegiance. And Ms. Hallman?
Absolutely.
She is ready to go. All right, please stand and remain standing.
Let's bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, be with us as we make decisions for the citizens of Dorchester County. May we be transparent and work in good faith for all our citizens. Father, please be with our first responders as they travel throughout our county to protect life and property. And Heavenly Father, as this county work this evening, please give us the wisdom and understanding to do the job that is at hand. We ask all this in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Thank you, Ms. Hallman. And Mr. Bailey, it's good to have you with us tonight. You're looking well, sir.
Mr. Chairman, since you mentioned my name, may I make a statement, please, sir?
You may, sir.
As you know, the bid opening.
Mr.
for-
Bailey, bring your microphone down, sir.
Bid
Thank you.
opening for the Burgundy Myers was done, and it was a little bit overestimated, right, Mr. Ward? So at the chat's meeting this morning, Mr. Ward was present. I told the Charleston group, we were trying to find money for it, and I told the Charleston group, do y'all remember Amanda used to say, I be for you, you be for me? And that was Arthur Avenue. And I reminded them, I've always been for Charleston, they better be for Dorchester, I think we got the money.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Thanks for saying that, sir. Let's see, we have address to address council, and we have one here, Mr. Thomas Fagan, who's driven up from the greater Somerville area. So, sir, how's the traffic on the way up, sir?
It was nice coming up. It wasn't bad at all. Wasn't in a hurry today.
So is this possibly a segue into your subject matter, sir?
I'm sure it is. Tommy Fagan, 111 Ponderosa Road, Somerville, South Carolina. Yes, sir, we got something coming up for third reading tonight on Mentor Road there. And that traffic coming off of Mentor will be dumping onto Orangeburg. They'll either come out on Orangeburg off of Mentor in between the schools, Pinewood and the two other schools, right in between there. People can't get out in that traffic in the mornings. They're gonna come out and come down Butternut, and Butternut, it's right in the middle of real sharp S-curves. Very dangerous intersection there by Vivian Hood's house, Vivian Knight. And until we get something concrete as far as doing something with Orangeburg, should we keep building? We have several places that are building now, those multifamilies that's going in on your way to Knightsville from the roundabout, only about halfway full. We got other places going in on Mentor. There's several other neighborhoods that's being built, and all of that traffic is dumping on the Orangeburg. It will affect Orangeburg one way or the other. When you can't get across, already now, coming out, I'll go all the way down Butternut, hit Central to go back to Publix because it's quicker than trying to get through Knightsville. You can't even make it up to the little cut-through road, Parsons Road or whatever that is. You can't even get up there. It's just quicker to go all the way down in front of Pine Forest to get to Publix. And trying to get out across the railroad tracks at Jedburgh is a mess too. Pretty soon people, in order to get out, they're gonna go through Pine Forest to get to 78 so that they can get to Maple Street to get to next an interchange, get on the interstate.
They already do, sir. They already do.
They already do. It's only gonna get worse. I'd hope, since we can't make the money to do something with Orangeburg or get the state to do it, or we don't have the money here, as I understand, inflation's taking a bite out of everything right now, including the road budget. So until we have something concrete on Orangeburg, I would very much so request that we curtail these buildings on Orangeburg, that's, because we're not halfway there with some of the subdivisions now, and it's untenable. Like you said, people are already cutting through Pine Forest, and it's a very convoluted trek going through there to 78. So please help. Please consider the people who live there already. Something needs to be done with Orangeburg. Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you. Next, we have on the agenda adoption of minutes from the April 4th, 2022 County Council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Sorry to stop you there, Ms. Holt. I apologize. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
We have 6 in favor, 1 absent. Next, we have a public hearing concerning an application to be submitted to the South Carolina Department of Commerce, Division of Grants Administration on or about May 5th, 2022 for a community development block grant. And the purpose of the public hearing is concerning an application to be submitted to the South Carolina Department of Commerce, Division of Grants Administration on or about May 5th for a community development block grant. Dorchester County is requesting approximately $50,000 to provide technical assistance for the CDBG project development in Dorchester County. The Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester Council of Governments will provide this technical assistance. And public hearing and the matters discussed are subject to the provisions of the Dorchester County Citizens Participation Plan, which, as I understand it, is still up on the county website. And it's developed in anticipation of participation in the state of South Carolina's Community Development Block Grant Program, providing for the participation of the citizens in Dorchester County in the planning and implementation of community and economic development projects, which will involve CDBG funds. And with that, I will open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on this subject, just please come forward and identify yourself, name and address. And not hearing anyone. And Mr. Ward, let's see, is Catherine Basha here tonight? Okay, all right. I will close the public hearing. And Mr. Ward, anything else we need to do relative to this? No motion attached to that, so we're good. Okay, thank you very much. Next, correspondence.
Mr. Chairman and Council, I just wanted to make Council aware that we have submitted our applications to Congress for projects that were previously identified by County Council, including Eagle Chandler Creek, Highway 78, Phase 3, and we'll be sending out some additional information to County Council on that, but substantially, as you'll recall, we have been asking for funding for the Greater St. George Wastewater Project. That was funded, so that's no longer a request. And then finally, last but not least, we are requesting an increase in the authorization for the Lake Marion project from the current $110 million up to $151.5 million. So that is the entirety of our request at this time.
Thank you, sir. Next, under guest time, Mr. Daniel Prentice.
Good evening. I have for you the March budget report and the updates on capital projects. One caveat to throw here, the numbers that we shared with County Council at the workshop last week were from the month-end closed of February. So what you're seeing tonight is from the month-end closed of March through the third quarter of the fiscal year. So I'll start out with the general fund. Total budget for the year with carryover $73,014,000. Total revenues to date of $56.2 million. Revenues are tracking as anticipated with property tax collections coming in strong. We'll see the turnover in the April budget report in terms of property taxes going delinquent, and that'll wrap up our current collections for the fiscal year. Expenditures of $50.4 million. Of note, we did make our intergovernmental outside agency payments in the month of March, so that wraps up those payments for the fiscal year. In the capital fund, total budget of $7.1 million. Revenues year-to-date of $4.9 million and expenditures of $4.3 million. Our biggest concern of any note in this fund at this point is just supply chain. Most of the outstanding expenditures to post would be for vehicles that were ordered that we're awaiting delivery on. We hope to wrap those up by the end of the fiscal year. American Rescue Plan Act Fund, as of the month of March, no changes of any major note in the revenue side. We'll receive our second tranche of funding in May of this year, and of course, County Council has already obligated certain expenditures for ARPA, which come into play with the funding that we'll receive in May. So that's not additional funding, that's just part of the plan funding that we were authorized as part of the American Rescue Plan Act. Total to date, we've posted $6.1 million in expenses to that fund of the $21.7 million in approved expenditures. Fire Fund, total budget of $8.6 million, revenues of $7,051,000, and expenditures of $5.9 million. Everything's tracking at or close to budget there in the Fire Fund for the year, so we anticipate closing the year out with no issues there. Water and Sewer Fund, total budget of $43.8 million, revenues year-to-date of $24.3 million. I'll note there that includes $11 million of carryover associated with prior year ongoing capital projects, and expenses to date of $22.2 million. Water and sewer impact fees, budget of $13.9 million. Current year revenues of impact fees posted of $5.2 million. The remainder is use of fund balance, and then expenses of $1.5 million. Stormwater Fund, budget of $4.4 million. Revenues of $4.5 million. We did see some strong collections this year in terms of stormwater fees, and that included the rate adjustment as well as expenses of $1.6 million. And lastly, the Solid Waste Fund, total budget of $8.7 million, revenues of $7.6 million, and expenses of $4.6 million. And all of those, of course, are coming in on the tax bills, and we'll see final turnover posted on the April report. Any questions on the budget?
Any questions?
All right. So I have capital projects. Start out with vertical construction here. Let's zoom in a little bit on this. There we go. So Ashley River Park, remaining punch items are being completed by the contractor. We're having a bi-weekly meeting to discuss those items, and our target is to have the contractor-driven punch items wrapped up by the end of May. Furniture for the park has been somewhat delayed. Some of it has actually been delivered in terms of the exterior furniture, so the rocking chairs, tables, and exterior furniture has been delivered. We're still waiting on the interior furniture, and we'll continue those bi-weekly meetings until the project's closed out. Connector for Ashley River Park and Rosebrook, we have a meeting with Public Works Administration, Parks and Recreation to be held later this week, April 22nd, to discuss options with the engineering firm, and request for proposal for full design and construction drawings has been sent to JMT, who we've engaged for that project. DCFR Station 17 on Sandridge Road, design is progressing. The TRC meeting is being held on April 20th this week to review the project. Building colors will match those at the Taylor Pond Road Station, and the project sign has been installed. So we anticipate being able to move forward with construction on that by this summer. Dorchester Paul's follow-up meeting was held March 30th to discuss their concurrence with a more simplistic and cost-effective design, which is a pre-engineered metal building. They're working with MBCon and Boomerang to visit several sites that have newer shelters delivered with a similar budget and similar specifications to that. And we're working on a new MOU for our positioning of the contribution to the shelter, given that they'd be working on their own land now. Edisto Lakes Park, we closed on that property on March 11th. That's 124.97 acres of the greater parcel that's owned by the Audubon. After property acquisition costs, we do have some remaining funding, which we're going to recommend for use towards the master plan, working with the Audubon and the land use agreement for that property. EOC, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough-ins are complete, and interior framing, enveloping of the building continue. Grading and concrete work for the tower are beginning, and the other site work will follow that. And then we're just firming up the project schedule to determine furniture and equipment delivery needs. Human Services building renovation, facilities and administration executed the final job order task. That was awarded to FH Passion Construction. They're pulling permits this week, and we'll start in the next week or so on that project on the second floor. Ladson Road Fire and EMS, construction fencing and signs have been installed. We're ordering a fence wrap that will kind of describe the project and share some of the conceptual renderings for the public. Demolition is ongoing. The metal building portion of the project demolition has started and should only take a few days, and then they're going to demo the remaining structure in concrete in the next week. Dominion's removed all site lighting and terminated power to the signalization on Ladson Road that was no longer in service, and then we'll be waiting on delivery timelines for some of the materials after site work commences. Law enforcement complex renovation, we are awaiting our final pricing proposal. It's been promised by tomorrow, so hopefully have an update for you on moving that forward at the next meeting. Mixed-use development of 500 North Main Street, the solicitation incorporating comments from our meeting with the Town of Somerville's BAR and Planning Commission went out on April 14th, so that was last week, and that's open now through June. And North Charleston Branch Library schematic drawings have been reviewed and approved. Constructability package was scheduled and delivered last week on the 14th, and we're just waiting on the land disturbance permit and going through final construction drawings, but the schedule that we discussed at the workshop is still on task. Oakbrook Library, schedule that we discussed at the workshop is still on target as well. McMillan Pasden Smith has agreed to have the construction drawings published, and we can work towards pricing with our job order contracting program this summer. And then we're waiting on the land disturbance permit there as well. Oakbrook TIF Sports Complex, the MOU with the YMCA has been executed, which is the beginning of the land conveyance for a portion of their property for the construction of the sports complex. And we have sent the change order request over to Land Plan Group in order to begin meeting on the redesign with the YMCA and the county in partnership. Oakbrook TIF Streetscaping and Trails, we've received the revised strip maps from Seaman Whiteside, and we believe we're going to be moving into public comment in May. I'm just reviewing a few internal comments and working forward, moving that to public comment with DOT, and we'll have some meetings in county council chambers in Somerville for that purpose. Pine Trace, we have a meeting later this week as well to discuss the construction drawings and several aspects of the project to bring us within budget. Summers Corner Fire and EMS, discussions with Lennar's design team and the county's design team are continuing, and we're working on the land conveyance there. Somerville Branch Library, MOU was executed with the YMCA for that as well, and so we're working on the conveyance of that site. The site fit test was completed by McMillan Pasden Smith, and now they're working on conceptual and schematic level drawings so that we can review those and approve that to move forward. And Swan Drive Park, again, this will be a busy week for project meetings. We have a meeting with Administration, Parks and Rec, and members of the TRC on site on April 20th to discuss the layout and cost impact, so we can bring that forward to you for final approval to move that forward for construction. That concludes all the vertical construction updates.
Any questions? Mr. Jones?
I'm counting here. I only count 3 fire stations. Isn't there a 4th one?
Summers Corner, well, technically, if you consider the Miles Road, the town of Somerville's project that they're going to be building, and I believe that was on their agenda, and I'll have to get a follow-up on that, but that was on their agenda on Thursday for approval of last week.
I just was checking. Thank you.
So, yes, sir.
I did speak to a member of town council today who said they are on go with that project.
Okay.
So,
I had communicated with Lisa Wallace late last week and was led to believe that that was the path they were taking. I just hadn't followed up since that time. Okay. I believe Mr. Caraher is here to present Public Works. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Prentice. Mr. Caraher?
Good evening.
Good evening.
First project I have is the bridge replacement design build prep. The funding strategies for that is ongoing. We're anticipating that that'll be in place at the new fiscal year, so we'll be able to begin the design on that project. Clemson Terrace drainage study, the Thorpe Road project design has substantially been completed. Now the contractor or the consultant is putting together the bid package so we can put this out for bid. Eagle Chandler Creek Trail Phase 2, the right-of-way appraisal is complete and we've made the offer. The property owner is agreeable to the offer, and we're just going through the process of securing that property right now. We're about 30 days into it. We should have it under contract in the next 2 weeks or so. Old Fort multi-use path, the project is substantially complete, and we have put together a punch list so that once the contractor identifies and addresses the final punch list items, then we'll be ready to close that project out. The Old Fort sidewalk, as we had mentioned before, this one has been delayed due to the Dominion gas line conflict. We're working with Dominion to try to come up with a feasible solution. It is at their cost, so there's no additional cost to the project. It would be Dominion's cost because they're in conflict with us, not the other way around. So that does continue to delay this project, though. The Platte Branch watershed study, the hydraulic model is substantially complete. The draft report is being developed to identify options and costs for construction. We're kind of doing this in conjunction with the plans for US 78 Phase 3A because we want to make sure that everything works together in the future. So a little more attention is being looked at this project to make sure that we don't have any adverse effects on the future 3A project. US 78 Phase 2A, the contractor has requested substantial completion. The DOT and the county will go out now and do a punch list. And then once those punch list items are complete, that project will be substantially complete. They'll still have some final miscellaneous items to do, but for the most part, it'll be complete. Then 78 Phase 2B, the utility relocations continue. When I spoke to you last, we were making great progress from Ridgeville to School Road. After that, we started getting into some substantial utility conflicts. It's going a little slower than we had liked. However, with that said, we're looking at other ways that are other spots so we can do construction. The water wheel realignment is a perfect example. We're doing work over there, doing some drainage work, doing some pavement work, and so we're working outside of the utility conflict areas right now. And of course, work between School Street and Highway 27 is ongoing as well. And with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Harper.
Well, good evening, council.
Good evening.
Glad to be here. A couple of things just to start off. In 1906, there was a big, what they call the Great Shake, which is a great San Francisco's earthquake which destroyed 80% of the city. But on a better note, we skipped down to 1775, where a blacksmith and silversmith was standing on the opposite shore. He says, one if by land and two if by sea. I'll be ready to go. And that was actually Paul Revere, and he actually began his famous ride on this evening. So, second phase of Stratton Capers, we have actually prepared the plan specifications. They are now in purchasing for solicitation. Common flow well rehabilitation, we are still working on that schedule to have the well to be pulled for a screen inspection. You just want to make sure that that's all ready to go. For the DSS pump station number 4, Force Main, our engineer submitted a amendment to the contract for some additional scope due to route changes. We're now evaluating that. I've actually sent it back and said, try again, and they've come back. They've actually come back. That is still Tribal Council. Contractor has bought the power cap and the crane pad, and the contractor is currently waiting on the crane delivery. Once that's in place, they will start the steel delivery and start construction of the tank vertically. Gravity and Force Main Sewer Rehab, final application for the Johnson Street project has been received, and we've actually submitted for final payment to close out that particular project. Lower Dorchester wastewater treatment plant expansion, contractor, construction manager risk has been selected. We're currently scheduling a meeting for final negotiations of the contract for that. Maple Street relocates, of course, as negotiations with the landowners as we're trying to obtain the required easements. Poplar Grove to Red Top, that design is ongoing. There might be a little change that we'll be talking to you in the future about. Pump Station 115, we've seen the final, the 90% plans. We reviewed it, made comments, and we're now pushing to 100%. For Pump Station 72 upgrade, we've held a meeting to discuss the final plans specifications. We're currently, the Deputy County Attorney and School Attorney, District Attorney are currently working out the final details of the property acquisition for the pump station location. Pump Station 79, we've looked at the closeout documents, and we're waiting for a permit to operate from DHEC. So that project is substantially complete. Reedsville Well and Rehabilitation, again, we're trying to pull the screens on that to take a close look. We have some concerns about the capacity of that well, and we're just making sure that everything is fine. For the Summer Haven water line, we are looking at executing a task order. We might actually pull that back because I've got some great announcement in a second. And the last one, the elevated storage tank for the Winding Woods Reach project, their elevated storage tank is having their foundation redesigned because unlike us, they hit solid material about 16 feet as opposed to our journey to the center of the earth down at Edison Tropical. The reach itself, they're working on clearing and grubbing for the pipeline, and we're ready to go. The great announcement I have is that we actually have extended and hired another engineer for water and sewer. A lot of capability. The gentleman has more than 12 years' experience. He is a wastewater engineer as opposed to those other types. And so we will be looking forward to well, there are. I don't even understand why they exist, but that's neither here nor there.
Wow.
With that, I think I am complete, sir.
Any questions? Well, do appreciate the shots you fired over the bow there, sir. That was well played. Mr. Carrer, you have no comment, sir?
What? What, huh?
Oh. And the fact that we had a little this day in history is appropriate since we have multiple members of the Dorchester History Center with us today. And our next guest is Mr. Dan Rogge, who's president of Rogge and Associates. And we'll have a presentation, the History Center vision and overview. Welcome, and welcome to everybody.
Great, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen of council, county staff, members of the audience, thank you for giving this opportunity to present to you today a little bit of an overview and update on Dorchester Heritage Center. You may be relieved to know that our only request today is just for 10 minutes of your time. This project has really been developing a lot over the years that I've been involved with it, and it's changing all the time in really good ways. And this is an important project that is not just about us, it's about everybody who lives in Dorchester County to have a part of a bigger story. So we want to make sure that you've had the benefit of being fully informed with where we are today. And if we have any time in the 10 minutes, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and also certainly offline, we can happy to take those. I do want we have a video we'd like to play. It's been a benefit to have a presentation where the video is actually covering most of the presentation. Quite happy about that, and I think you will be too. Afterwards, I do have a few slides I'd like to cover, and then we'll entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
From prehistory to present day, indigenous tribes to settlement communities, natural disasters to breathtaking natural beauty. The inland low country of Dorchester County and the surrounding area is rich in stories to tell and places to experience. And this history, these places, they tell who we are, how we lived, challenges we've met, and perhaps most importantly, where we're going. Like you, we're determined to keep this place we call home from becoming an Anywhere USA. We want this to be a vibrant area where families live, work, and put down roots that last, where our small town atmosphere continues even as our communities grow, and where our history connects us to a greater sense of place and to one another. Dorchester Heritage Center is at the center of this effort, amassing impressive archives, exhibiting collections and personal histories, and collaborating with scholars, archaeologists, and teachers to bring our history to life and to us. Through public programming, collaborative ventures, and a new, expanded museum facility on 81 acres easily accessible to visitors, Dorchester Heritage Center is discovering, preserving, and promoting our inland Lowcountry's history, artifacts, and the stories for today and generations to come. There's a bigger and fascinating story to tell. Our story. Come discover with us.
Well done.
Okay, there we go.
Well, thank you. This is, I think this is the big piece that a lot of people don't realize, that there is a bigger story to tell, and we're all a part of that. So I want to tell you a little bit more about it, and I'm assuming I just need to press this button
The keyboard.
on the keyboard.
Pull it out from the,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Good. So before we get started, you enjoyed the video okay? Was it different than what you thought you were going to hear?
Great video, great video.
Harry had seen the video once before. That's a spoiler alert. But just want to tell you a little bit about it. We all are very aware that things are changing rapidly in the county. Most of it for the better, but all of it is bringing about very rapid changing of the experience, new people coming in, new opportunities, new challenges. It's a very dynamic town, in time rather. There's a lot in this county that people don't know the history of. And I grew up in Somerville and thought I knew history pretty well. My mother was chair of the Sesquicentennial celebration. My grandmother, at the Centennial celebration, was curator of the first Somerville Museum. And my great-grandfather was the last intendant, first mayor. So what does that mean? That means I should know more than I do. But even discovering upper parts of the county over the last year has been fascinating for me, and pieces that I've not known. There are so many pieces and stories that we know parts of, and there are so many stories we don't know anything about yet. So again, we want to be able to invite a lot more voices in and tell a fuller, more rich story. And I'll tell you really why we think that's so important. There are a lot of people moving in new communities. The sense of community is different. And when we were young, the towns were a lot smaller. You knew a lot more of the people. That sense of connection and connectivity is a little more challenging today. So how do we connect people? How do we build a greater sense of community? How do we avoid being an anywhere USA? And how do we really establish a shared identity and appreciation of place? It's been really exciting for me even to see the new Ashley River project coming online. I wish that was available when I was a kid because that looks really cool. There are amenities that we haven't had before that are coming together, and I think there's a lot of complementary activity taking place. I think the biggest piece that we want to talk about is really this opportunity to unite and promote all of the historical, cultural, natural assets of Dorchester County and what we call the inland Lowcountry. We know a lot about what's going on in Charleston, but we have a story to tell here. And ultimately, all this is really about kind of creating the kind of future and the kind of community, the sense of place that we want to live in as we grow older, our kids grow older, and people who come to this town, to this county, to this community can grow and appreciate with. So just a couple of slides here. I think when people think about a museum, they often think just about the exhibits within. Now, make no mistake, we intend to have really fantastic, immersive exhibits to stimulate curiosity, promote learning, but it's also an introduction to the things that are beyond the walls. All of the things that people can learn about is a gateway to this county they can experience in the Heritage Center. Open new doors that they didn't know about, new places. That sense of discovery is really important. You wonder does anybody have any idea who the couple on the upper right-hand corner might be? it's pretty random, so I wouldn't. So anyway, that is Anthony Ashley Cooper, who is the 12th Lord Shaftesbury, who the Ashley and Cooper Rivers are named after. Came to visit a few years ago. Their family plantation, but it was also a trading post and a number of things. It's quite close to a colonial Fort Dorchester. That was critical in the founding of the colony and a gateway for the development of the colony. You know, that's complicated histories that come along with that, but that's in Dorchester County. A lot of people don't know that. That's really important to the formation of South Carolina and ultimately what our evolution into the 13 colonies in the United States.
I do want to say real quick, the lady in the background is Jackie Powers, my roommate from college's wife. So, but you can fact check me on that.
That's good.
So.
Okay, so you did identify somebody in the picture. So.
Well done. We've also, you just spoke to this earlier, I know Phyllis and Eddie and others are working with the 250th anniversary coming up of the Revolutionary War, but there's also some inciting research going on today about how some of the troop movements through Dorchester County, it looks like, and there'll be more to follow, that might qualify us to be on the Liberty Trail and kind of solidify our piece of our county's history in the American Revolution. I won't go through too much of this. If you didn't know, Pine Forest Inn is the large hotel there. It was also a place where President Teddy Roosevelt visited. The school in the upper right-hand corner is an African-American school dating from around the 1870s in Somerville. It no longer exists, but it's also one that I don't think many people knew about, or know about, rather. So really, what does success look like for us? Because this is really important. If we think ahead in the future, what we want this to be, we want to have an inland low country where everybody has a knowledge of our extraordinary unfolding history. Because history is being made all the time. We want to have great schools with immersive learning experiences. I know that's always been an important part of any community, is having good health care, good schools, and also having some recreational opportunities. And those are hallmarks of any thriving community. And that's true for this county as well. So how we complement the schools is rather significant. We also want a place where individuals and communities are connected by a deep appreciation of place and each other. So understanding different groups and how we all fit in to one larger narrative about Dorchester County and the inland low country. We're all part of that larger story. So our mission is to discover, preserve, promote the history of the inland low country by weaving the stories of our people, land, and culture into the fabric of daily life and future growth. And that's important. It's not just to have a place where we have some cool things to see. It's also, we want it woven into the fabric of daily life, and it is about the future. I won't go into too much detail, but it's often easy to fall into the trap of just saying it's a museum, but it also has pretty impressive genealogy services, the archives and collections for artifacts and family treasures. I don't think it's news to anyone that many kids move away today, and they may not have an interest in some of those historical items that maybe we had treasured or our grandparents had treasured. Having a place where more people can share and experience some of these really fantastic pieces that do have stories of their own is really important. Educational programs and outreach. Almost think about this. I've talked a little bit before about, I visited not so long ago Charlestown Landing for the first time since the 1970s. It's changed a lot in some ways, in other ways not. But thinking about what we're building here is something that is going to be a place that draws people. It has outdoors, it has museums, it has place for educational functions, social functions, a real center of activity. The educational programs and outreach are for the schools, but also adult education that lifts up other organizations within the county and the inland low country. Collaborative initiatives, everything from working with the University of South Carolina, Charleston Museum Archives, Brockington and Associates, the list goes on. So it really is a hub of collaboration. Just going to give you a couple of quick sites. I know I'm probably at about 10 minutes already. This is kind of a bird's eye view of the property, just to give you a sense. It's on Highway 78 at 27. Ridgeville, it was the ideal location, kind of in the center of the county, but also close to major population areas. 81 acres, really fortunate to be able to come into this. It was partly, large part because of the vision and the mission that we have, that we were able to attract the support of Mary Cummings, who wanted to see this happen and valued what we were trying to accomplish. This is another image of the front of the building. I won't go into any details, but again, thinking about this is not a destination of its own entirely, but a gateway to discovery, gateway to connect to other historical, cultural, natural assets in the county, in the inland low country. So really, right off the interstate, right off of 78, easy to get to. This is just an image of I won't go into detail here, but it has significant space for exhibits, archives, but also a very large chamber for traveling exhibitions and also special events. A lot of people have said that there's not enough space for family gatherings, weddings, important gatherings of people. So we wanted to make sure we have plenty of space indoor and outdoors for that. And in fact, I know that one of the things that Phyllis Hughes has planned is securing a traveling Vietnam Wall exhibit to come to Ridgeville in, I think, 2 years. Is that right? And we have space, and it's really a pretty fantastic experience if you know anything about this traveling wall exhibit. That's the rear courtyard. And we've been getting organized in the community, and this is really important for us to make sure that we're really responding to people's needs and getting guidance on leaders in the community that can help make sure that we're taking the steps that we need to take. And I just wanted to acknowledge those non-board members that have been on our steering committee that have been really extraordinarily helpful to us. And we've also had a significant number of volunteers involved too, so much appreciated for all their efforts. We do hope this ultimately will be a public and a private funding scenario. Won't go into too many details. We have funding about 2.68 right now that we do have either secured or in line, and we will be starting a campaign into the community to really engage community support, and then we will look for public funding at the end to help finish the project. We have a number of sources that we've already engaged with. So this fellow on the back is President Teddy Roosevelt, and this really concludes the presentation. And I want to thank everybody again for your time and generosity of attention. Any questions or anything?
Any questions?
But, Mr. Chairman, I've got, you guys probably know this. You talked, since we're doing history tonight, something that I've kept. Have you guys looked at the diary of Lieutenant Anthony Allaire? You're talking about, since you're talking about Dorchester and the American Revolution, and if you'll bear with me, 1780, the campaign of 1780. Wednesday the 12th received orders to march. The North Carolinians were ordered to join Colonel Ferguson. We left Lenning's plantation about 7 o'clock in the evening and marched to Bacon's Bridge, 22 miles, where we arrived at 5 o'clock on Thursday morning, very much fatigued. We halted to refresh till 7, cool weather. Thursday the 13th got in motion at 7 o'clock in the morning, marched through a small village called Dorchester. It contains about 40 houses and a church. Continued our march to Middleton Plantation, and this is funny, Middleton's Plantation at Goose Creek, about 15 miles from Bacon's Bridge and 10 miles from Dorchester. Here we met the Legion at 1 o'clock, and it goes further and further. So.
Fantastic.
You think they stopped at the splash pad?
It may have.
Yeah, okay.
No, that was actually Marion's men at the splash pad.
That's correct.
That's a different letter.
You're right. You are correct.
They hit the water wheel briefly on the march north.
Indeed, there you go. That is fascinating.
Just real quick, thank you for the presentation and the work of the board and so many that are, making this possible. So thank you very much. I think it's a huge, significant step for us to preserve and honor our heritage and history as to educate the future. That said, are you guys going to do any collaboration with the museum in Somerville or any other? I know you had made mention of a couple. And
So the easiest way I could describe that is, yes, and here's how we see it working. There'll be introductions to a lot of these places, Somerville, St. George, but also with information that if you want to do a deeper dive, go visit these places.
Cool.
So we do want to make sure that there is a sense of connectivity, and hopefully if someone comes into the Heritage Center, gets excited, that inspires a desire to go visit other places as well.
And just another food for thought. Thank you for sharing that. If you haven't already reached out to the McKissick family, Coach John McKissick, you can't hardly tell the history of Dorchester County without, him being a part of that. I know that she also wants to honor the legacy and to have some of his collection, on that mobile exhibit circuit that you guys are speaking about too. So just kudos to the efforts, and it's exciting times in Dorchester County for sure. So thank y'all.
Great, thank you much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And do you want to recognize those that are here?
I'd love to. Thank
Sure,
you.
let's do. And again, my understanding, by the way, is that Mr. Smith was going to speak at the next meeting, but I think we'll just take full advantage and just do it all right now, if that is okay. So.
The only other thing that I do, Mr. Chairman, is last year about this time, I gave you the report of all that we had accomplished by month. And we want to do that because what you told us when you gave us a 3-year lease instead of 5 was show substantial progress. And the coming of the Vietnam Wall is meant to be our opening, July 4, 2024. And we look on target for that, but we need that 2-year extension to make it to that date so we don't move twice. But I'll just submit a written report with what we've done since my last report.
Thank you so much. Dan, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you there.
Not at all. I'd like to introduce our chair of our board, Phyllis Hughes, who has been really kind of the spiritual leader of this group and also takes everything from research to reminding us quite early in the morning what the steps of the day are. And jokingly, we're grateful for everything that you do. Rudd Smith is the vice president, has been involved in every facet of this development as well. Claire Mazzell is the director. Deb Davis, director. We also, Edsel Taylor, Brunson Westbury. I'm sure I'm probably overlooking someone, and there are people who have been really supportive and engaged with us. Harriet Holman and her husband Herman, and we're grateful for all of you that have been helpful along the way too, because this really is a big effort requiring all of us to do what we can, so thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add to what Mr. Chinna said? I'm very grateful that you gave us that information. I was working with Eddie in the 250, that's why we're coming on May the 2nd. That actually gives us another site. Because on December the 3rd, they were in Rossingville, and Colonel Lee was sick, so he had to stay behind as Nathaniel Green and his probably 1,000 men, it's not sure how many, marched through Dorchester County to the Edisto River and camped on our side of the river overnight because of the treacherous traveling. And then they crossed the river, and they literally had to stay across the river that next day because it was so treacherous to get across, and then they went on to round us. So we're finding all these things right now, and these are sites where the Liberty Trail right now today has one site in Dorchester County, and that is Colonial Dorchester. So that's what we're coming to you on May 2nd, and study those other sites so that we can get those on the Liberty Trail, which is national history for our county. So we're very excited. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Smith.
And Mr. Chairman, just to add, the one, there, Marion has, and I just looked it up, it's paperback and it's $1,400, but Marion has a book, Unwearied Patience and Fortitude, which is basically a collection of Marion's, at that time, they published all of their orders basically in notes and stuff like that, but his orderly book has another discussion about them camping potentially at what is Ashley River Park. There's another set of letters in there in addition to, Ferguson was on the other side, as I recall, but nonetheless, it was, and of course, it's, to me, it's interesting that Fort Dorchester is on a Revolutionary War site because it was much more of an F&I. It was much more French and Indian than it was American Revolution at that point in time, but maybe the folks in Columbia hadn't figured that out.
Thank you. And again, thank you very much. Next, County Administrator's time, Mr. Jason Ward.
Chairman and Council, I have a couple of items for your consideration. The first is third reading of rezoning request number 854 for Thomas and Hudden to rezone 4.42 acres located at 345 and 349 Mentor Road near Somerville, TMS number 128-00-00156 and 166 from Suburban Residential District SR to Single Family Residential District R2. I ask for third and final reading.
So moved. So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Mr. Tennis, I didn't know if you wanted to, when Mr. Fagan was speaking, I didn't know if you wanted to address what he was saying
I can
relative to
address,
this.
I guess I can address a little bit. Those two parcels, relatively small, gosh, I don't even remember, it's 6, I think Kira's left, 6 or 7 acres. Oh, there she is in the back. 4 acres total? Okay, yeah, I knew it was, that are actually adjacent to a much larger tract that already has the rezoning. Independently, and again, trying to go back into this independently, those pieces wouldn't trigger an impact study, but taken as a whole, all of those pieces together that they would be developing, and I'm looking to make sure all of those pieces as a whole would automatically trigger an impact study. So to address some of your concerns, the developer is going to have to look back. It's kind of hard to see from there, but this large area here, this smaller yellow area there, the two parcels we're talking about are those little pink areas that are, they're relatively small in conjunction, but taken together as a whole, they trigger an impact study, an impact analysis, so.
Those two parcels are right on Mentor Road, and it would cut off access big time to that other part back there.
But it ends up being a unified piece as the same developer is putting them all together. And again, it would require, those two alone, they could develop them as SR 3/4 acre lots. I'm guessing, but 3/4 acre lots without even asking us. So combining them, again, I don't know if they're looking at cluster ordinance or not at this point in time, but looking at that opportunity to leave ground undeveloped, undisturbed, and in addition, part of a larger parcel that triggers that impact analysis that otherwise would not be triggered on a 4-acre parcel. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
We have 6 in favor, 1 absent. Mr. Ward?
Next item I have for your consideration is third reading of an ordinance to amend and supplement Dorchester County zoning and land development standards ordinance number 0413 as previously amended to add a new subsection C to Article 18, Section 18.5, impact analysis setting forth the responsibility for payment. And I will ask Kira to give the recommendation of the Planning Commission prior to third reading.
Yeah, so this came out to the planning commission last week with a recommendation for approval.
Okay.
And I would make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? And I do have a question. I'm assuming first reading was under pending ordinance doctrine? Is that
It was.
correct? Which is why we're able to implement this on the thing that we just voted on? Okay.
I think, I'm looking at Tracy, I think I made that motion under pending ordinance.
I think you did.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
And 6 in favor, 1 absent. Mr. Ward?
Third and final item I have for your consideration is a request for approval to adopt the 2022 through 2025 Dorchester County Public Safety Strategic Plan. This was previously presented to council on March 21st. Ask for your approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have motions and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
Again, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Mr. Ward, anything else, sir?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. Next, we have committee report. Chairman Chennis, the Planning Development and Building Committee.
Mr. Chairman, a little after 5:30 PM today, we had the recommendation, request for approval of the cluster bonus density for the community facilities at Pineview South, formerly known as the Howie Rogers Tract. That was met with unanimous approval.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of the committee. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
Again, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chennis. Next is committee report for Water and Sewer Committee, and we met at 5:45 or thereabouts. We had one item on the agenda, request for approval of new water and sewer service by HQ Givans LLC for a 107-lot subdivision off Givans Road and approval of cost-sharing agreement. This is for TMS numbers 119000037 and -080. The recommendation of the committee was to approve 6 in favor, 1 absent.
You've heard the recommendations of the committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, it is 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Thank you, sir. Next, appointments to boards and commissions. And we have as an agenda item appointment to Dorchester County Aeronautics Board. Do we have anyone? It's me? Do I need to refer to my notes here? Live TV, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I owe you one. Okay. Wow, okay. Apparently, District 6 is in need of an appointment. I will take care of that and only District 6. And then, let's see, reappointment or appointment to Dorchester County Accommodation Tax Advisory Committee. And Mr. Friddle, your district is one that's up for either appointment or reappointment, sir. Just give you that heads up.
Thanks for letting me know. Yeah. That's on the tax advisory?
Yes.
So the member representing District 4 is Tracy Todd, and he's currently in a holdover status until either he is replaced or reappointed. And so if you're so inclined, he would be representing, again, hospitality industry on the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee.
Absolutely, I'll reappoint Mr. Tracy.
Okay.
So motion to reappoint Tracy Todd.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
6 in favor, 1 absent. Mr. Friddle, that went better than mine, I will say.
That kind of caught me by surprise. I didn't realize.
Well, it's the, Yeah, it's the old saying, you're looking around to find the crazy person on the bus. You can't find him. It turns out it's you. Well, I was the sitting here looking for someone to make a motion. It was me. Sorry about that. We'll do better next time. Okay, all right. The next is County Attorney's time. Mr. John Frampton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of Council, first item I have for your consideration is third and final reading of an ordinance to supplement the Code of Ordinances for Dorchester County by adding new sections numbered sections 6 through 6-60 at sec to a new article, Roman numeral 4 of Chapter 6, to provide for the repairing, closing, or demolishing of unfit dwellings and providing a mechanism for the recoupment of costs so incurred. We would request third reading.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, members of council, will be third reading to an ordinance to supplement the Code of Ordinances of Dorchester County, South Carolina by adding a new subsection D to section 40-43, which will provide a discretion to the county treasurer in the scheduling and collection of installment payments of ad valorem taxes. We would request third reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
6 in favor.
Next,
one
Mr. Chairman, I would have request first reading of an ordinance by title only, authorizing pursuant to Title 12, Chapter 44 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina as amended, the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes agreement between Dorchester County and a company known to the county at this time as Project Steamboat as sponsor to provide for a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes incentive and other related matters. I would request first reading by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, again, we have a motion and a second. Excuse me. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
Again, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Mr. Chairman, I request an executive session of council to discuss 2 contractual matters, those being a biological science center and the transfer of the Ashley Ridge High School elevated storage tank to Dorchester County Water Authority, to discuss 2 matters regarding legal advice, the first being a mediation agreement with KH Ponds LLP, the second being the 1-cent transportation sales tax. Lastly, discuss 2 personnel matters in executive session, one dealing with the county administrator, one dealing with the economic development director.
Thank you. Before we actually take a vote to go into executive session, another segue here. Mr. Truelock, just has come to our attention that you've been recognized as one of the top 50 economic development, is it not directors, but what is the phrase there? I've forgotten. But in North America. And congratulations, sir. And no rebuttal, sir, right? Okay, thank you. No. All right, now we'll take the vote to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
And it is 6 in favor, 1 absent. And folks, we are in executive session. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Please drive carefully. Mr. Frampton, would you please bring us out of executive session?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, executive session, council discussed the previously announced items, but no action was taken.
Thank you. Do we have any motions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chennis?
I would move that county council authorize the county administrator to execute any documents necessary to convey title to the Ashley Ridge High School elevated storage tank to the Dorchester County Water Authority for the sum of $500,000.
Second.
Second.
Need a second. Okay, so we have a motion, second. Any discussion? And hearing none, all in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
Okay, it is 6 in favor, 1 absent. Any other motions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Friddle?
I move that the county council authorize the county administrator to execute an agreement with the Charleston and Berkeley counties for the design, construction, equipping, and staffing of a tri-county biological science center with a total contribution of $1 million from Dorchester County as discussed in executive session.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
6 in favor, 1 absent. Any more motions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I will move that county council approve the mediation settlement agreement that was presented in executive session involving the appeals of K.H. Ponds LLLP and authorize the county administrator to sign the same.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
6
No.
in favor, 1 absent.
No. I'm voting no on that one, sir.
You are, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, excuse me.
That's all right, sir.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 absent.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any more motions?
You got a motion in your hand.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I would move that county council extend the current contract with the county administrator for a period of 3 years from its current expiration date of September the 17th, 2022.
So moved.
Second. Everybody up here is going to say second at the same time?
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion in 5 seconds. I'll skip the discussion. All in favor, raise their hand. Aye. It is 6 in favor,
Now you can.
1 absent. Nobody's voting against this time? No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, Mr. Ward. All right. And any other motions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I motion we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
And it is 6 in favor, 1 absent. We are adjourned. And folks,
Thank you, gentlemen.
let's see. We have pictures, headshots, Tuesday, May 24th, Tuesday, June 7th.
So we're taking headshots at people or?